The alarm on my wrist cuts through the silence of the Kesh flagship before I even understand what I am hearing. My hands are bound behind me with a cold metal restraint, and General Voss stands 3 steps ahead of me, her spine straight, her chin lifted, facing a wall of towering alien judges who have already decided her fate before this meeting began. I am Ethan Cole, communications officer, and until 12 minutes ago, I believed I was here for a routine diplomatic renewal. 900 years of peace between humanity and the Kesh Dominion rested on ceremonies like this one, repeated every few decades, a quiet ritual to remind both sides why we stopped killing each other so long ago. I never imagined I would be standing here now, watching that peace collapse in real time. The chamber is vast, built from black stone that seems to drink in the light instead of reflecting it. Kesh officers line the walls, tall and broad-shouldered, their pale eyes fixed on General Voss with an intensity I have never seen from them before. This is not how these meetings are supposed to go. There should be formal greetings, an exchange of gifts, a recitation of old promises. Instead, the moment we stepped off our shuttle, armed guards surrounded us, and General Voss was pulled forward alone while the rest of us were forced to our knees. I try to catch her eye, hoping for some sign, some flicker of the calm confidence she always carries into difficult rooms. She does not look back at me. She is watching the Kesh overlord seated at the center of the judgment platform, a figure named Thrax Cauldron, whose reputation among our intelligence officers paints him as the most dangerous voice in the Dominion's ruling council. General Voss, Cauldron says, his translated voice flat and mechanical through the small device clipped to his collar. You stand accused of crimes committed against the Kesh people 300 years before your birth. The words do not make sense to me. A crime from before she was born. I glance at Liam Brooks, our security officer, kneeling beside me, and I see the same confusion in his eyes. This is not an accusation. This is a performance. And General Voss seems to understand that faster than any of us. I was not alive 300 years ago, she says. Her voice calm, almost gentle, as if she is explaining something simple to a child. You know this. Your own historians know this. Guilt does not require presence. Cauldron answers, it requires blood. You carry the blood of the humans who once broke our worlds. Today that debt comes due. I feel my chest tight. This is the oldest trick in the book. The kind of political theater that species use when they want to break a truce without looking like the ones who broke it first. Blame a symbol. Punish a name. Let the guilt of ancestors fall onto the shoulders of someone who never asked for it. General Voss knows this too. I can see it in the way her jaw sets, the way her shoulders square instead of slump. She has spent her entire career reading rooms like this one, and she reads this one perfectly. She is not here to be executed for a crime. She is here to be humiliated, to be broken in front of every camera drone hovering silently near the chamber's ceiling, feeding this moment to every allied and rival species watching across the galaxy. You want a message, she says, cutting through Cauldron's next sentence before he can finish it. You want the galaxy to see humanity kneel. Cauldron's pale eyes narrow, the closest expression to surprise I have seen from a Kesh official. He did not expect her to say it plainly. He expected fear or pleading or the kind of desperate bargaining that gives him more material to work with. Instead, she has stripped his intentions bare in front of his own council. And for a brief moment, I feel something like pride cut through my fear. 900 years, she continues, her voice rising just enough to carry across the chamber, and you choose this moment to test us. Why now? Cauldron does not answer her question. Instead, he raises one hand and the guards behind General Voss step forward, removing the ceremonial rank markers from her uniform one by one. Each medal, each insignia falls to the blackstone floor with a small sharp sound that echoes far louder than it should. I watch her face as they do this. She does not flinch. She does not look down at the medals scattering around her boots. She keeps her eyes on Cauldron, unblinking, as if daring him to find the fear he is looking for. He will not find it. I have served under General Voss for 6 years, and I have never once seen her back down from anything, not a hostile fleet, not a failed negotiation, not the endless political games back on Earth that would have broken lesser officers years ago. She built her reputation the hard way, standing alone against a Kesh war fleet centuries after the first war between our species, refusing to fire the first shot, refusing to retreat until the Kesh commander of that fleet ked first and agreed to talk instead of fight. That single act of nerve is the reason the truce exists at all. She is not just a general to us. She is the truce given a face and a voice, which is exactly why Cauldron chose her. Do you understand what you are doing? She asks him, and there is something new in her tone now, not fear but urgency, as if she is trying to hand him one last chance to step back from whatever he has planned. If you do this, there is no undoing it. Not for 100 years, not for 1,000, we understand perfectly. Cauldron says that is why we are doing it. The chamber falls silent. Even the guards seem to hold their breath. I realize in that silence that this was never a trial. It was a countdown, and we are standing at 0. Ethan, General Voss says suddenly, and my name in her mouth snaps my attention fully onto her. She has turned her head just slightly enough to look at me over her shoulder. Her eyes are steady, clear, holding no fear at all, only something that looks almost like reassurance. Whatever happens next, you remember every second of it. You carry it home. Do you understand me? I do not understand, not fully, not yet, but I nod anyway because there is nothing else I can do with my hands bound and guards pressing rifles against my back. Good, she says, and turns back to face Cauldron. Any final words, General? Cauldron asks. And there is something almost eager in his voice now. The anticipation of a man who believes he is about to witness the moment humanity's spirit finally cracks after 9 centuries of quiet. General Voss straightens her back one final time, and when she speaks, her voice is loud enough to fill every corner of that vast black chamber. You think this ends something, she says. It does not end anything. It begins something you will not survive. The words hang in the air, and for the first time I see something shift in Cauldron's expression. A flicker of doubt so brief I almost miss it, almost. But it is there, and I will remember it just as she asked me to. The guards step forward again, and this time they are not removing medals. I close my eyes, not out of fear, but because I understand in that single terrible moment that I am about to witness something the galaxy will never forget. And that everything I thought I knew about peace, about safety, about the quiet 900 years humanity has enjoyed is about to be rewritten in front of me. When I open my eyes again, General Voss is looking directly at me, and she is smiling, small and fierce and utterly without fear, as if she already knows exactly what comes next, as if she planned for this moment, long before I ever understood what kind of woman I was serving under. The chamber lights dim just slightly, and the camera drones above us tilt downward, focusing entirely on her. Somewhere far above this Blackstonian chamber in orbit around a world I will probably never see again. Our shuttle waits with its engines already warming as if it too understands that whatever happens in the next few minutes will decide the next chapter of human history. I take one last breath and I watch. The guards do not move to strike her. Instead, they step back and Cauldron raises his hand once more and the blackstone floor beneath General Voss begins to shift, panels sliding apart with a low grinding sound, revealing a raised platform rising slowly from below. It is not an execution chamber. Not yet. It is a stage, and I understand with a sinking feeling that whatever comes next is meant to be watched, studied, and remembered by every species with eyes on this broadcast. A translator drone hovers closer to Cauldron, adjusting its receivers to catch every word with perfect clarity. He wants nothing lost in translation. He wants every syllable of what happens next understood exactly as he intends it. Before judgment is carried out, Cauldron announces his mechanical voice carrying through hidden speakers I had not noticed until now. The accused will be given the opportunity to request clemency from her government. I feel a flicker of hope quickly followed by suspicion. Kesh diplomacy rarely offers anything without a hidden cost, and I brace myself for whatever trap lies inside this offer. Clemency, General Voss repeats, testing the word as if it tastes strange in her mouth. You want me to beg? I want your government to choose. Cauldron corrects her. A message will be sent to Earth's Council. They may offer terms, reparations, and apology for crimes committed centuries ago. If they comply within the hour, your sentence may be reconsidered. I realize now what this truly is. It is not an offer of mercy. It is a test designed to force Earth's government into a public confession of guilt for something that happened long before any of us were born. A confession that would be broadcast alongside her fate, weakening humanity's standing with every other species watching. If Earth refuses, General Voss faces the harshest outcome, and humanity looks powerless to protect its own. If Earth agrees, humanity looks guilty, weak, willing to trade truth for the life of one officer. Either way, Cauldron believes he wins. General Voss understands this instantly, faster than I do. Faster than the tightening knot in my stomach allows me to process anything clearly. Send your message, she says, but do not expect the answer you are hoping for. Cauldron tilts his head slightly, an expression I have learned over the years to recognize as something close to amusement among the Kesh. You seem very certain of your own government's decision, General. I am certain of one thing, she replies, they will not lie for you. Whatever they choose, it will be the truth, and the truth has never been afraid of consequences. Under quiet, the chamber falls into a strange, tense quiet as the message is prepared and transmitted. The distance between here and Earth's council chambers, measured not in kilometers but in agonizing minutes of subspace delay. I glanced toward Liam Brooks again, his face pale, his eyes fixed on the floor as if searching for an escape route that does not exist. Beside him, our science attaché, Claire Dunor, has gone completely still, her breathing shallow, her eyes locked on General Voss with something between worry and disbelief. I understand the feeling. None of us expected this. We came here for handshakes and formal words, not for a trial broadcast to 1,000 worlds. The minutes stretch unbearably. I count them silently, using the rhythm of my own pulse to mark time, anything to keep my mind from spiraling into panic. General Voss stands motionless at the center of the platform, and if she feels any fear, she does not show it. Not with her posture, not with her breathing, not with the steady way her eyes track every movement in the chamber around her. Finally, a soft chime echoes from the translator drone hovering near Cauldron, signaling the arrival of Earth's response. Cauldron straightens, and for the first time since this began, I see something like genuine anticipation in his expression. He reads the message silently first, his pale eyes scanning whatever text has appeared on the small screen embedded in his palm device. Then he looks up, and the amusement in his face has curdled into something colder. Your council, he says slowly, declines to offer reparations. They state, and I relay this exactly, that history belongs to historians, not to hostages. A murmur ripples through the Kesh officials lining the chamber walls. I feel something swell in my chest that I cannot name at first, something caught between fear and fierce, unexpected pride. Earth refused to bend. Earth refused to let one woman's life be traded for a lie. General Voss closes her eyes for just a moment. And when she opens them again, there is something almost like relief in her expression, as if this is exactly the answer she expected and hoped for all along. They understand what you are trying to do, she says to Cauldron. They will not help you do it. Then your sentence stands, Cauldron replies. And the warmth of his earlier performance is gone entirely now, replaced with a flat clinical finality that unsettles me more than his anger ever could. But before the guards can move again, General Voss speaks once more. And this time her voice carries a different weight. No longer defiant, but deliberate, as if she has been waiting for this exact moment to say something she planned long before she ever stepped onto that shuttle. Since you have already decided my fate, she says, allow me one request, a private channel to my own officers, a final word, as is tradition even in your own culture, for those who commanded before you. Cauldron studies her for a long moment, weighing the request, searching perhaps for some trick hidden inside it. I hold my breath, uncertain whether he will grant it or dismiss it outright. Finally, he gestures toward the translator drone and it drifts toward us, positioning itself so that whatever she says will reach only our small group, not the wider broadcast audience watching across the stars. Speak, Cauldron says, but know that your words change nothing. General Voss turns fully toward us now. And for the first time since we arrived, I see something in her eyes that looks almost like tenderness buried beneath the steel that has carried her through every crisis I have ever watched her face. Ethan, Liam, Claire, she says, addressing each of us by name, her voice steady despite everything. Listen carefully because I will only say this once. We lean forward as much as our restraints allow, hanging on every word. When you return home, she continues, you will find people afraid. People asking whether 900 years of peace made us weak, whether we forgot how to stand our ground. She pauses and her eyes flick briefly toward Cauldron before returning to us. Tell them the truth. Tell them we never forgot. We simply chose every single day not to use what we boo. That choice was never weakness, it was patience. I do not fully understand what she means, not yet, but I commit every word to memory exactly as she asked of me earlier. There are things about our fleet reserves that even most officers never learn, she says quieter now, almost too quiet for the drone to catch clearly. things built in the centuries since the First War, never deployed, never announced, waiting for a day none of us hoped would come. That day is here. Claire's eyes widen beside me, and I realize she understands something in this statement that I do not. Some technical detail buried in her specialized knowledge that clicks into place at these words. Find Admiral Grace Bennett when you return, General Voss continues. Tell her the phrase second horizon. She will know exactly what that means and exactly what needs to happen next. Before any of us can ask a single question, Cauldron's patience finally runs out and he raises his hand sharply, signaling the translator drone to withdraw. Enough, he says. Sentiment has no place here. The drone retreats and General Voss straightens fully, turning back to face Cauldron with the same unshaken calm she has carried since the moment we arrived. I am ready, she says simply. The guards step forward once more, and this time they do not stop. I watch Cauldron raise a small device from his robes, dark metal catching the dim chamber light, and I feel Liam tense beside me, his breathing quick and shallow. Claire closes her eyes, unable to watch. But I remember General Voss's instruction, and I force myself to keep mine open, no matter how much every instinct in my body screams at me to look away. Let the galaxy witness, Cauldron announces, his voice booming now through the hidden speakers, reaching every broadcast feed, watching this moment unfold across 1,000 worlds. What becomes of those who believe peace makes them untouchable? General Voss lifts her chin one final time, meeting his eyes without a trace of fear. And in that last moment before everything changes forever, she speaks one final sentence, quiet but clear, meant not for Cauldron, not for the watching galaxy, but for us alone. Remember second horizon. The device in Cauldron's hand activates with a low rising hum, and the chamber lights flicker once, then steady. And I understand that whatever happens in the next few seconds will be burned into my memory for the rest of my life exactly as she asked of me. The hum from the device rises into a sharp singular tone, and a column of pale light rises from the platform floor surrounding General Voss completely. I do not look away. I made her a promise, and I intend to keep it no matter how much my chest aches and my throat tightens with everything I am trying not to feel in this moment. The light brightens for a heartbeat, and then just as quickly it fades, and where General Mira Voss once stood, there is only empty platform and a stillness so complete that even the Kesh officials along the walls seem unable to move. I do not know how long the silence lasts. It could be seconds. It could be minutes. Every part of me feels frozen, caught between disbelief and a grief so sudden and total that I forget for a moment that I am still kneeling with my hands bound and guards standing over me. Cauldron breaks the silence first, lowering the device back into his robes with the same calm precision he has shown throughout this entire performance. Let it be recorded. He announces to the drone still hovering above us that the sentence has been carried out in full view of all who witness this broadcast. I want to scream at him. I want to demand he explain how any of this can be justified. How 9 centuries of peace can end this easily, this coldly over crimes that belong to people long dead and buried. But I say nothing because General Voss's final instruction echoes louder in my mind than any anger I feel. Remember, carry it home. That is my task now, not vengeance, not grief, but memory. Liam is the first to speak. His voice barely above a whisper. They actually did it. Claire says nothing at all, her eyes fixed on the empty platform, her whole body trembling slightly, though whether from fear or fury I cannot tell. Cauldron turns toward us then, and for the first time since we arrived, his expression shifts into something almost close to satisfaction. You 3 will return to your ship, he says. You will carry this message to your government exactly as you witnessed it. Let your people understand the price of arrogance. I want to ask why he is letting us go at all. Why he does not simply silence every witness to this moment rather than send us home to spread the story. But I already suspect the answer buried in his own confidence. He believes our fear will spread faster than any fleet could travel. He believes broadcasting this moment across 1,000 worlds and sending its living witnesses home to confirm every detail will accomplish more than any invasion ever. He wants humanity paralyzed by grief and fear, not united by purpose. He has no idea how wrong he is. The guards release our restraints, shoving us roughly toward the chamber doors, and I stumble forward on legs that feel unsteady beneath me, my mind still replaying every second of what I just witnessed. Liam catches my arm, steadying me, and together we move through the black stone corridors of the Kesh flagship, retracing the path that brought us here, what feels like a lifetime ago. Though barely 2 hours have passed, Claire walks just ahead of us, her posture rigid, her jaw locked tight. I do not know what she is thinking, but I recognize the same fire in her eyes that I felt building in my own chest, something that has replaced the numbness of shock with a quiet, burning resolve. We reach our shuttle without further incident, the Kesh escort peeling away the moment we cross the threshold, as if they cannot stand to be near us any longer than necessary. The shuttle systems come online the instant we step aboard. Engines already warmed exactly as I noticed earlier, almost as if some part of General Voss anticipated this exact outcome long before we ever set foot on that flagship. As the shuttle detaches from the docking clamp and begins its slow retreat from the Kesh vessel, I turn toward the viewport, watching the massive black hole shrink behind us, and I feel something settle inside me, cold and clear and absolute. She knew, I say quietly, more to myself than to either of them. She knew this was coming. Liam looks at me, his expression caught somewhere between confusion and dawning realization. What do you mean? The second horizon, Claire says suddenly, turning from the cockpit controls to face us both. I have heard that phrase before, not directly, but in old fleet documentation buried in archives most officers never access. What is it? I ask, my heartbeat quickening. Claire hesitates, glancing toward the cockpit's rear display, where the Kesh flagship continues to shrink into the starfield behind us. It is a contingency protocol, she says finally, established shortly after the First War ended, expanded quietly over the following centuries. I always assumed it was theoretical, a framework that existed on paper, never meant to be used. But it is real, I say, not really asking, already certain of the answer. If General Voss mentioned it by name, Claire says, then yes, it is real and it has been waiting. The shuttle clears the flagship's docking perimeter and begins its acceleration toward the jump point that will carry us back toward human space, back toward Earth, back toward a galaxy that has just watched in horrifying detail exactly what the Kesh Dominion believes it can get away with. I think about the drones hovering above that chamber, broadcasting every second of what happened to 1,000 worlds. I think about every species watching, judging, wondering how humanity will respond. I think about the council members back on Earth who refused to trade truth for mercy, who chose honesty, even knowing it might cost a woman her life. And I think about General Voss's final words, spoken not in fear but in absolute certainty. This does not end anything. It begins something you will not survive. I do not yet understand exactly what she meant, but I feel the shape of it beginning to form somewhere deep in my chest. A fire that grief has not extinguished, but instead sharpened into something far more dangerous. We need to reach Admiral Bennett, I say, breaking the heavy silence inside the shuttle, the moment we land. Liam nods, still pale, still shaken, but his voice steadies as he responds. Agreed. Whatever this second horizon is, if it is real, the Council needs to know immediately. Claire begins inputting coordinates into the shuttle's navigation system, her hands moving with a precision that suggests focus has replaced fear, at least for now. The jump point is 20 minutes out, she says. From there, 4 days back to Earth space, assuming no complications. 4 days. 4 days to sit with what I witnessed, to relive every second of it, to prepare myself for the moment I have to stand in front of Earth's Council and describe in exact detail what the Kesh Dominion did in that chamber. I close my eyes and immediately the image returns sharp and unbidden. General Voss standing tall in that column of pale light, refusing until her very last breath to give Cauldron the fear he wanted so badly to see. She never gave it to him. Not once, not even at the end. I open my eyes again, and through the viewport, the Kesh flagship has become nothing more than a distant point of light among countless others. Indistinguishable now from the stars surrounding it. Somewhere out there across 1,000 worlds, that broadcast is still playing, still being watched, still being judged. I wonder what the reaction looks like on Earth right now. I wonder if the Council has already seen the footage, if Admiral Bennett already knows what happened before we even arrived to tell her ourselves. I wonder how many people are staring at their screens in disbelief. The same disbelief I felt standing in that chamber watching a woman who represented 9 centuries of careful, patient peace disappear in a column of cold, deliberate light. The shuttle reaches the jump point and Claire's hands move steadily across the controls, initiating the sequence that will carry us out of Kesh territory and back toward home. The ship shudders slightly as the jump drive engages, space folding around us in a brief, disorienting pulse of light and pressure. When my vision clears again, the stars outside the viewport have shifted entirely. Unfamiliar constellations replaced by ones I recognize from countless training simulations and childhood nights spent studying the sky. We are back in human-controlled space. And somewhere ahead of us, 4 days away at standard cruising speed, Earth waits. Still unaware of exactly how much has changed in the last 2 hours, Liam settles into the seat across from me, his hands finally steady though his eyes remain distant, still processing everything we witnessed. "Do you think they will believe us?" he asks quietly. "When we tell them exactly what happened?" "They will not need to believe us," I say, my voice quieter than I intend. "They already watched it happen. The whole galaxy did." Claire finishes securing the navigation systems and turns to face us both, her expression settling into something calm, controlled, and utterly resolute. "Then our job is not to convince them it happened," she says. "Our job is to make sure they understand what happens next." I nod slowly, and for the first time since that chamber door closed behind us, I allow myself to feel something other than grief. Beneath the sorrow, beneath the anger, something else is beginning to take shape, quiet and certain, exactly the way General Voss intended. She did not die afraid, she died certain. And that certainty was never about her own survival. It was about ours, 4 days. 4 days to prepare myself, to prepare Liam, to prepare Claire for the moment we step off this shuttle and into a world that is about to discover exactly what 900 years of careful, patient peace was actually preparing us for. I settle back into my seat, watching the stars stretch into thin lines as the shuttle accelerates toward home. And I begin quietly, deliberately, to organize every detail of what I witnessed into words I will need to speak clearly, without hesitation the moment I stand before Admiral Grace Bennett and the full weight of Earth's council. Second horizon. Whatever that phrase means, I intend to make certain it means exactly what General Voss believed it would. Earth's orbital docks come into view on the 5th day, later than expected after a minor course correction. And even from this distance, I can tell something has changed. Traffic around the station moves with a tension I have never seen before, ships holding formation instead of drifting freely. Security patrols doubled along every corridor visible through the viewport. Claire guides our shuttle through the docking sequence in silence. And the moment the airlock cycles open, I understand immediately that Admiral Grace Bennett already knows exactly why we have returned. She stands waiting at the end of the docking corridor, flanked by 2 officers I do not recognize. Her expression unreadable, carved from the same discipline General Voss always carried. "Officer Cole," she says, her voice clipped formal though her eyes hold something far heavier beneath the surface. "Officer Brooks, Officer Dunor, walk with me." We follow her through corridors that feel unusually quiet, every person we pass moving with a focused urgency that tells me the entire station has been reorganizing itself around the news that must have reached them days before we did. Admiral Bennett leads us into a secure briefing room, sealing the door behind us before turning to face us directly. "I have watched the broadcast 11 times," she says without preamble. I needed to understand exactly what she said, exactly how she said it before I decided anything. "She gave us a message," I say, my voice steadier than I expect. "For you specifically." Admiral Bennett's expression sharpens immediately. "Tell me, Second Horizon," I say, and I watch the words land on her exactly the way I hoped they would, her composed exterior cracking just slightly, replaced by something between recognition and quiet dread. She is silent for a long moment, studying each of us in turn as if weighing how much she can safely say. Finally, she exhales slowly and gestures toward the chairs surrounding the briefing table. "Sit," she says. "What I am about to tell you does not leave this room until the Council authorizes its release." We sit and Admiral Bennett remains standing, her hands clasped behind her back, her eyes distant as if gathering the weight of decades before she speaks again. 900 years. "Go," she begins. "When General Voss first negotiated the truce with the Kesh Dominion, humanity made a decision that very few people outside senior command ever learned about. We agreed to the truce publicly. Privately, we agreed to something else entirely." "What else?" Liam asks quietly. "We agreed to prepare," Admiral Bennett says. "Not to attack, not to threaten, simply to prepare quietly, patiently for the possibility that peace might someday fail." She pauses, glancing toward the door as if checking that it remains sealed. Second Horizon is the name given to that preparation. A dormant fleet built gradually across 9 centuries, distributed and hidden across systems the Kesh never thought to monitor closely because as far as they were concerned, humanity had grown comfortable, complacent, exactly the way peace tends to make a species behave. Claire leans forward slightly, her scientific mind clearly working through the implications. How large is it? Admiral Bennett hesitates, and for a moment I think she will refuse to answer. Then she meets each of our eyes in turn, and something in her expression settles into resolve. Large enough, she says simply, that General Voss believed it would matter. She helped design elements of it herself decades ago before she ever became the face of the truth she was negotiating. The revelation settles over me slowly, reshaping everything I thought I understood about the woman I served under. She did not simply maintain peace out of hope. She maintained it while quietly ensuring that if peace ever failed, humanity would not be caught helpless. Why has no one used it until now, I ask, because using it would have proven the Kesh right. Admiral Bennett says, if we revealed Second Horizon without provocation, we would look like the aggressors, exactly the kind of threat that could justify renewed war on their terms, with their allies rallying to their cause instead of remaining neutral. She pauses, her voice hardening. But now they have provided the provocation themselves, broadcast to the entire galaxy, witnessed by every species watching. No one can accuse humanity of striking first. I begin to understand slowly exactly what General Voss meant in those final moments before her sentence was carried out. She was not simply warning Cauldron. She was setting the stage for exactly this moment, ensuring that whatever happened to her personally, humanity's response would be seen by the entire galaxy as justified, inevitable, and entirely provoked by Kesh arrogance rather than human aggression. The Council is meeting within the hour. Admiral Bennett continues. Your testimony will be required, all three of you describing exactly what you witnessed, exactly what General Voss said in her final moments. The Council needs to understand not just what happened, but why she chose those specific words before authorizing anything further. They are considering it, Liam says quietly, more statement than question. Second Horizon, they are actually considering deploying it. They are considering it. Admiral Bennett confirms, but the decision does not rest with me alone, and it will not be made lightly. 9 centuries of peace does not end because one admiral decides it should. It ends if it ends because the entire council agrees that the alternative, continued silence, continued restraint would only invite further tests of our patience. We are escorted shortly afterward into the council chamber itself, a room far less imposing than the Blackstone chamber aboard the Kesh flagship, built instead from warm wood paneling and soft lighting that feels almost jarring after everything we have witnessed over the past 5 days. Council members fill the seats around a long, curved table, each face marked with the same grim exhaustion I imagine mirrors my own. I am asked to speak first, and I recount everything exactly as it happened, every word General Voss spoke, every detail of Cauldron's performance, every moment of her final defiance. My voice remains steady throughout, though my hands tremble slightly as I describe the column of pale light, the silence that followed, the emptiness where she once stood. When I finish, a woman near the center of the table, Council Chair Evelyn Marsh, speaks for the first time. You are certain of her exact words, Second Horizon. Certain, I confirm. Council Chair Marsh exchanges a glance with Admiral Bennett, something unspoken passing between them before she turns back to address the full chamber. Then, General Voss did not simply die today. She says she authorized something deliberately in front of witnesses she trusted to carry that authorization home. Clarier speaks next, describing the technical details she recognized from buried archive references, confirming everything Admiral Bennett explained to us earlier. Liam adds his own account of the chamber's atmosphere, the certainty in Cauldron's voice, the calculated cruelty of forcing Earth's council to choose between Eshin and confrontation. When we finish, the chamber falls into a heavy silence broken finally by Council Chair Marsh rising slowly from her seat. For 900 years, she says, addressing the full council now rather than just the three of us, this body has upheld a truce built on patience, restraint, and the belief that peace, however uneasy, remains preferable to war. Today, the Kesh Dominion broadcast to every species in this galaxy exactly how little they value that patience. She pauses, letting the weight of her words settle before continuing. General Voss gave her life today not simply as a symbol but as a signal. She trusted us to understand exactly what that signal meant, and she trusted these three officers to carry it home intact. Her eyes move across each of us in turn. I do not believe restraint any longer serves the purpose it once did. I believe the time for Second Horizon has arrived. A murmur spreads through the chamber. Some voices raised in agreement, others hesitant, cautious, weighing the enormity of what such a decision truly means. I watch the debate unfold around me. Council members arguing points I barely understand, referencing treaties and precedents and consequences that stretch far beyond anything I considered during my years as a communications officer. Through it all, I keep returning to General Voss's final words, spoken quietly, meant only for us. This does not end anything. It begins something you will not survive. I understand now finally exactly what she meant. 9 centuries of peace never made humanity soft. It gave us time, patient and unseen, to build something the Kesh Dominion never anticipated, hidden in plain sight behind the appearance of comfort and complacency. The Council's debate stretches for hours, but I already sense, watching the faces around that table, exactly which direction this decision will ultimately take. Cauldron believed broadcasting General Voss's execution across the galaxy would paralyze humanity with fear. He never considered that it might unite us instead, sharpening 9 centuries of quiet preparation into a single unified purpose that no longer requires restraint to justify itself. As the Council finally moves toward its vote, Admiral Bennett leans toward me briefly, her voice low, meant only for my ears. "You did exactly what she asked of you," she says. "You carried it home." I nod, unable to trust my voice fully, watching as Council Chair Marsh calls for the final count, watching as hands rise steadily around that curved table, one after another until the outcome becomes unmistakable. Second Horizon has been authorized. Somewhere far beyond Earth's orbit, in systems the Kesh Dominion never thought to watch closely, something that has waited patiently for 900 years finally begins to wake. 3 weeks after the Council's vote, I stand on the observation deck of a command vessel I never knew existed until 9 days ago, watching formations of ships emerge from hidden shipyards scattered across a dozen systems. Vessels built in secret across generations. Crewed now by officers who trained for this exact moment without ever fully believing it would arrive. Admiral Bennett stands beside me, her uniform now carrying the additional insignia that marks her as Fleet Commander of the entire Second Horizon Initiative. Neither of us speaks for a long moment, watching the ships align into formation against the backdrop of distant stars. She would have wanted to see this, I say, finally breaking the silence. She did see it. Admiral Bennett replies decades ago when she first helped design half these ships. She knew exactly what she was building. Even then, I think back to everything I learned in the weeks since our return, piecing together fragments of history that had remained classified until the Council's decision made secrecy pointless. General Voss had spent years early in her career working alongside engineers and strategists to design vessels that combined technology. Humanity kept quietly advancing while publicly maintaining the appearance of restraint mandated by the truce. Weapons systems refined but never deployed. Propulsion technology developed but never announced. Entire fleets constructed in systems far from any Kesh monitoring routes. Crewed by officers sworn to secrecy, training for decades against a threat they hoped would never materialize. She built all of this quietly, patiently alongside maintaining the very peace that made such preparation possible in the first place. She never saw the two goals as contradictory. She saw them as two halves of the same responsibility. The Kesh fleet has been sighted. A voice calls from the command station behind us, and Admiral Bennett turns immediately, her expressions sharpening into focused readiness. "Position?" she asks. "Entering the border system exactly as intelligence predicted," the officer replies. "They believe we remain unprepared. Their formation suggests confidence, not caution." Admiral B. Net nods slowly, turning back toward the viewport, watching our own formation continue arranging itself with quiet, disciplined precision. "Let them believe that," she says, "until the moment it no longer matters." I remain on the observation deck, watching as the fleet finishes its preparations, watching as Admiral Bennett issues quiet, measured orders to officers who respond with the same calm discipline General Voss always demanded from everyone under her command. I understand now why she chose officers like Liam, like Claire, like myself to witness her final moments. She needed people who would carry her message home accurately, faithfully, without distortion or exaggeration exactly as it happened. We accomplished that task. What comes next belongs to people far more qualified than I am to carry it forward. The Kesh border fleet appears on our sensors within the hour. Exactly as predicted, their formation confident, their approach unhurried, clearly still operating under the assumption that humanity remains exactly as vulnerable as Cauldron believed us to be. After broadcasting General Voss's execution across 1,000 worlds, they have no idea what waits for them. Admiral Bennett gives the order calmly, without hesitation, without cruelty. Simply the measured confidence of someone executing a plan built across 9 centuries of patient preparation. Our formation moves forward, vessels emerging fully from the systems where they remained hidden for so long, revealing to the Kesh fleet for the very first time exactly what humanity has quietly built. While the galaxy assumed peace had made us soft, I watched through the viewport as the Kesh formation hesitates, their advance slowing, their confident approach faltering as sensors aboard their ships register readings that clearly do not match anything their intelligence prepared them to expect. For the first time since this crisis began, I feel something shift in the balance between us. A recognition, even from a distance, that the galaxy's understanding of humanity is about to change permanently. Communications open between the fleets, and I listen as Admiral Bennett speaks directly to the Kesh commander leading their border formation. Her voice calm, measured, carrying none of the anger I still feel whenever I remember that chamber, that column of pale light, that silence where General Voss once stood. "You are entering human territory," Admiral Bennett states simply. "Withdraw now and this ends without further loss." The Kesh commander's response crackles through the speakers, defiant at first, invoking the truce's collapse, invoking Cauldron's authority, invoking centuries of assumed superiority that clearly still shapes how they view this confrontation. But as our formation continues revealing itself fully, vessel after vessel emerging from concealment, I hear something shift in his tone, confidence giving way slowly to uncertainty. "This is not possible," he says finally, his voice quieter now. "Your fleet, this was never disclosed under treaty terms. The treaty ended the moment your council broadcast an execution to the entire galaxy," Admiral Bennett replies. "What you are seeing now is simply what patience looks like given 900 years to prepare." The silence that follows stretches long enough that I begin to wonder whether the Kesh commander will respond at all. When he finally does, his voice carries something I never expected to hear from any Kesh official. A note of genuine uncertainty, perhaps even fear. "What do you want?" he asks. Admiral Bennett's answer comes without hesitation, calm and absolute withdrawal, immediate and complete, from every border system your fleet currently occupies, and a formal acknowledgement broadcast with the same reach as General Voss's execution that the crimes attributed to her were fabricated. Another long silence follows, and I find myself holding my breath, uncertain how this moment will resolve, uncertain whether pride will override the clear tactical reality now facing the Kesh commander and his formation. Finally, the response comes. Quiet, reluctant, but unmistakable withdrawal will begin immediately. Admiral Bennett closes the channel without further comment, turning to look at the assembled officers around her, myself included, standing quietly at the edge of the command deck. "It is not over," she says, addressing everyone present. "This is one border, one fleet, one commander willing to step back rather than test what we have shown him today. The Kesh Dominion's ruling council will need far more convincing before genuine peace, if it is even possible again, can be rebuilt." I think about Cauldron, still somewhere within Kesh territory, still believing perhaps that his broadcast accomplished exactly what he intended. I wonder how he will react when word reaches him that an entire fleet hidden for 9 centuries revealed itself at humanity's border and forced an immediate withdrawal without a single shot required. I won. Dare if he will finally understand what General Voss meant with her final words spoken not in fear but absolute certainty. "This does not end anything. It begins something you will not survive." Weeks later, standing once more on that same observation deck, I watch as diplomatic channels reopen cautiously between Earth and the Kesh Dominion. this time under vastly different terms than the truce General Voss once negotiated centuries into her own long career. This time, humanity does not approach as a species hoping to avoid conflict through quiet restraint. This time we approach as a species that has demonstrated unmistakably exactly what patience combined with preparation can accomplish. Admiral Bennett stands beside me again, watching the same stars that once framed General Voss's final moments aboard that Blackstone chamber, now framing an entirely different chapter in humanity's long, careful history among the stars. She would be satisfied, I say quietly, more to myself than to the Admiral standing beside me. She would be proud, Admiral Bennett corrects gently. Not simply of what we built, but of the fact that we used it exactly as she intended, not for conquest, not for revenge, but to ensure something like this can never happen again without consequence. I think about the medals that fell to that black stone floor, scattered around her boots as the Kesh guard stripped her rank one piece at a time. I think about her steady voice, unshaken until her very final word. I think about the promise I made her silently standing in that chamber with my hands bound, unable to do anything except watch and remember. I kept that promise. We all did. Somewhere beyond the border system, still settling into their uneasy new balance, the Kesh Dominion is learning slowly and painfully exactly what 900 years of patience prepared humanity to become. Not soft, not weak, not the paralyzed, fearful species Cauldron believed he could break with a single broadcast execution. Instead, something far more dangerous and far more enduring than the truce that came before it. A species that remembers everything, forgives selectively, and builds quietly and patiently exactly what it needs, long before the moment ever arrives when that patience finally runs out. General Mervos did not simply end a truce that day, standing tall in that column of pale light. She began the next 900 years of human history exactly as she intended, exactly as she planned, and exactly as she promised with her very last word that we would remember. We remember. We will always remember. And somewhere among the stars, I believe she already knew we